Hey everyone, this is Lomi. I'm doing a little bit more art today, and I thought I would tell you a little bit about the time that I worked briefly with a publishing house. Not long after my daughter was born, I had the opportunity to work from home as the assistant to the editor-in-chief of a small publishing house based out of a city not far from where I lived. It seemed like it was going to be perfect. Work from home, set my own hours. It was supposed to be about 5 hours a week, maybe flexing up to about 8. Most of what I was supposed to do was pretty simple. At first, all I really did was take care of scheduling, reply to submissions, get things into the slush pile for the editors to go through, just basic office grunt type stuff. They wanted me to get into the editing side at some point, but I figured we would kind of work up to that. At the beginning, I was just excited to be working in the industry. For about the first week, everything worked really well. I had a lot of opportunities to see how the people in the publishing house worked with the writers that were contracted with them. I got to see what went into their marketing plans. They taught me how to write press releases for the books. I got to correspond with a lot of book reviewers, send out copies of the books for read and review, and I also got a copy of pretty much everything that the publishing house was working on so that I had plenty of reading material too. Unfortunately, they did not really publish anything in genres that I write, so it wasn't stuff that I was super interested in reading, but they had expressed some interest in moving into fantasy at some point, so I thought if I stuck with it and wrote it out, I would eventually have a chance to show them my work and maybe it would be an easy in with the publishing house. Things started to go downhill when, after the first week, it started evolving from a 5 to 8 hour per week job to 20 to 25 hours per week job to do everything that they expected of me. Even though I was working from home and setting my own schedule, it was an unpaid internship, so they were really asking a lot of me, especially considering I was a new mom and my family still needed most of my attention at home. A lot of my personal projects got put aside trying to squeeze in more time for the publishing house, just trying to make sure that I met all of their needs. After a few days of trying to balance things, I thought that I had gotten things into a rhythm that worked pretty well. And then I started getting text messages in the middle of the night when they wanted me to be working on stuff at 3 in the morning because they were working on stuff at 3 in the morning. I would reply and tell them, I'm sleeping, my family is sleeping, my new baby is sleeping, I really can't get up in the middle of the night to be doing the work that you want. They were unhappy, but that wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to make. I pushed back pretty firmly. I asked them not to text me in the middle of the night like that when they wanted things. And for a few days, it seemed like maybe I was going to make some headway. And then the really uncomfortable part started. At some point along the line, and I'm trying to figure out a really tactful and family-friendly way to say this, the editor-in-chief decided that he wanted to include me in certain fantasies of his. And so I started getting these wildly inappropriate text messages from him expressing his interests and the things that he wanted me to do. He acted like it was supposed to be an add-on to the job, like an expectation of the job role, and that was so not okay. Since he was the EIC, there was obviously nowhere I could take it. He was the boss, it's a small publishing house, so there's no HR department. And it was just something that I was really not comfortable with trying to deal with. I cut ties as politely as I could. There were a lot of people in the company that I didn't really feel comfortable talking to about what had happened. And unfortunately, in a business like publishing, anything that you do that makes waves can create a bad name for you, and it can have later impact on your career. So most of what I told them was that it wasn't working out, I wasn't a good fit, I wasn't comfortable with the expectations that they had of me, which the editor I'm sure knew exactly what I meant, but everybody else just assumed that I wasn't really fitting into the role very well. And I'm okay with them making that assumption. Most of the people that I dealt with were really great people. But it was also kind of an important lesson, because people don't really talk about it, but that kind of thing and that kind of behavior is apparently really common in the publishing industry. But the really important lesson that came out of it was that when you enter these contracts with publishing houses, you give them so much power over your career and over your future. They have the ability to blacklist you or drop you at any time, and those are the kind of people that you could run up against anywhere. And when it comes down to it, as much as I want my work to be recognized, and as much as I want it to be considered valid through traditional publishing means, or, just to get past the gatekeepers in the industry and have somebody tell me that my work is good enough, I'm also not willing to sacrifice my personal comfort by putting people like that in charge of the future of my career. Especially not when there are so many other options now. Authors who self-publish and become successful are often much more wildly successful than those who get traditional publishing contracts. It's easy to point at it and say anybody can self-publish, but not everybody can do it and be successful. The hardest thing for me is learning to understand that my work is not made more valid because a gatekeeper told me it is. What makes my work valid is that it's important to me, and I have done my absolute best in bringing it to life. When working on a series like this that I've put together for my characters that I show on this channel, I feel like it's a lot more important that I have full creative control over where it goes. And maybe the books will never be successful. I may never even have anybody read them. You might pick it up and go, this is kind of horrible, and I'll be like, okay, thanks for giving it a try. But in the end, I've done what I can, and as long as I'm not sacrificing my own comfort or giving control of my work to anybody else, I feel like I've done the right thing. So anyway, with that depressing story out of the way, I do have one piece of really good news, and that is that I finally have an editor. She is currently going over the first book in the series while I make revisions to the third. I loved what she did with the sample edits on the first chapter that I sent her. I felt like she really understood the vision that I had for the series, And I felt like she had a really good grasp even of like the vocabulary that I use, because whenever she reworded things, it sounded like something that I would have changed if I had gone over it. While I don't have a date set yet, I do have kind of a rough time frame in mind for publishing these books. When this video goes up on YouTube, it will be June 27th, which is actually Rune's birthday, so it's kind of fitting that I'm doing a drawing of him. His birthday was the day that I first had the idea for his story, and as of now, his character and his story is 18 years old. So he's been with me for a long time, and I feel like getting to this point is way overdue. I'm sure I'll have more to say about the writing and the editing process, but I'm really excited about where things are going right now. And even though I don't have the day set in stone, I do kind of have the window in mind. So if everything goes according to plan, I should have these books in my hands next March. And that's it for today. If you stuck with me this long, then thank you. And if you have any questions about my weird, awkward story, or me, or my books, then please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.